Hey, welcome to the Communications Techniques Training. My name is Chef Scardina. I want to apologize for any background noise from the beginning, but let's go ahead and get started. We're going to cover three sections today. The first one will be communication competencies, instructional strategies, and ethics and diversity in education. Part 1, communication competencies. What is communication? Well, I will tell you, but I will tell you this first. It is very hard for me to communicate doing this lesson right now because I am talking to myself, and it would be easier if there were people in front of me. So I'm just going to pretend like the people who are listening to this are in front of me to make it a little bit easier. So once again, what is communication? Listening, or here are the foundations of communication. Listening, talking, hand gestures, environment, text, which could be like you're seeing right now, technology, which you're seeing right now, and body language, which will be a little bit more difficult to do on this PowerPoint. What is the role of communication in education? And what are the proper communication with students and colleagues? What are the benefits of proper communication with students and colleagues? I think these two go hand in hand. The role of communication is to help students retain knowledge. They need to pass a course so they can pass a course. That's basically, in a nutshell, what it is. That's why we're trying to communicate to students. But there's a lot more to that than just them passing the course. We have to follow certain flow and have a certain environment for students to be able to do this. So we want to create a smooth, flowing work environment for staff and student. Teach communication skills students will use later in life, phone skills, speaking in public, and proper technology messaging. Teach certain students certain mannerisms. Good morning, thank you, have a nice day. I think a lot of these things are overlooked, but they're a very important part of communicating with people. And lastly, respect, empathy, understanding for all people and all their values. By going through this PowerPoint right now, I realize I'm going to use the word communication quite a bit. There's not much I can do about it, but I'm just going to keep communicating this to you. Communication competencies. As instructors, how do we apply successful communication techniques? The first one I have here is informative. I would say this is the most understood form in the school system. Here, I'm doing a lecture, but I make a simple study guide so students can follow along, as you can see here. So it can be a lecture, a study guide, a PowerPoint, and that's an informative competency. Next one. Imaginative. I like this one a lot. It promotes outside the box thinking, promotes discussion, and creativity. As you can see here, I did a desert island scenario where they have to list 10 essential food items that they would bring until they are rescued. And they can submit that on the platform we use at my school, Schoology. And lastly, this communication competency, persuasive. This encourages students. School expectations. Let me start over. This is a persuasive competency, is to encourage students, let them know about the school expectations and about self-care and kindness to others. As you can see here, this is our acronym RAMS: respect, alert, mature, and safe. That's kind of our mantra at my school, and we try to follow those guidelines. Benefits of interpersonal communication. What is interpersonal communication? It's about having real conversations, sharing stories and emotions. And what are the benefits of this? It promotes active listening, promotes discussion, and it promotes engagement. You can't just, a teacher just can't stand up there and just read from, I guess, what you would call an informative text, just read off of it. It's going to do no one any good. It is very important that you share life, and then, in my opinion, you share life experience, and students share that with you as well as your colleagues, so you get to know each other and you can communicate better. Effective listening skills. We have active, collaborative, empathic, I think I'm saying that right, and reflective. Active, you're listening. The student is trying to listen to what you're saying, or as an instructor, I'm trying to listen to the student. Collaborative is when teachers are taking turns speaking. I think this is a great one. Although it can be a little bit difficult to manage, you have to make sure no one is speaking out of turn. Empathic, I hope I'm saying that right. I think this is where people need your full attention and understanding. And this is a more serious situation. Like, I'm giving you my full attention to understand what the situation is. Reflection, after I do a demonstration or a lecture, I want students to reflect on what I'm talking about. They can do that on their own or as in a group or with me. So what are some of the potential barriers that can get in the way of effective listening skills? Talking out of turn, inferior classroom setup. If students are too far back, maybe I can do this. You can hear me. If I'm too far back, you can't hear me. It might be difficult. So you want everybody to be able to hear you. Little or no engagement between teacher and student. Very important. Once again, have to have those collaborative conversations with each other. And lastly, language barrier happens time for time, ELL. We got to make sure that people who, if English is not their first language, we need to make sure we provide the right accommodations for them, not only so they understand, but they feel like they're part of the class. Okay, verbal and nonverbal communication. The reason I put this equal sign here is because I think they're equally important, but they're two different things. A verbal, as you can see, I have a phone here, phone calls, Zoom meetings, lectures, demonstrations, study guides, all form of verbal communication. Nonverbal communication, as you can see here, you can see my face, not very happy. That is a form of nonverbal communication. And here's another one. This isn't a cartoon of me, a little bit happier, ready to go. It's amazing how much goes into nonverbal communication. Once again, very hard to explain over this PowerPoint video, but expressions are everything. How you look, how you're composing yourself. It's something that, once again, is very hard to explain here. If you look at this picture here, I wanted to say this here. Hand raising, I think, is a very important part of nonverbal communication in some points. It's like, even though it's only for an instance, it's like my hand's up, I would like to speak, but there's no talking, it's just understood. And you can see here at the bottom, I put a few pictures of different emotions which translate to nonverbal communication. Part 2, instructional strategies. Instruction methods with listening strategies. Demonstration. That's one of my favorites. Food service production, student participation, and online learning. Those are the 4 I'm going with, and I'll talk about those in a little bit more detail. Demonstration. I love doing demonstrations, but I'm not talking the whole time. I want student input. I ask questions, they ask me questions, and we take it from there. It's very visual. It's a great form of communication. Food production. My class runs a business, and we have a lot going on, and there's different methods of verbal and nonverbal communication. And it's very fast-paced communication. I think this is also a good time to say the inflection of someone's voice is very important. Maybe if you're speaking faster, there's more of a sense of urgency. If you're speaking a little bit louder, they know things need to get done. And this is a very normal part of the learning environment in my classroom or kitchen lab. Student participation. If you can see here, this are a few of my students. During the pandemic, they actually helped create some online classes. Can't tell you how this worked out so well, just because, well, let me explain this first. Some students were in school, some were still home, not quarantined. They just brought a few students in at a time. So had some students at school, some at home doing online Google Meets, and I let my students run these sometimes, and I think it just changed the pace. They saw a different face. It was a different form of communication with their fellow students, and it worked out so well. I think letting students participate in every aspect is the greatest thing you can ever do. Instruction methods. Okay, last one, online learning. I hope you can see this. It's a little small for me, but this is just kind of the guidelines I went over when we're online. You just can't log. When we have during the pandemic, and now we have a lot of snow days. So this winter we will have a remote learning if we have a snow day. So kids have to log on and be to class on time. So I like to set up the guidelines for participation during my online classes. And this is communication is the most important part of this. Not just typing and messaging, but like in real time, talking and having those discussions we usually have. Part 3, ethics and diversity. Ethics, what I would guess if I was doing this in front of people, I'd be like, what does this mean? What is ethics? And I'm just going to right from wrong, beliefs, morals, behavior, acceptance, principles, fairness, standards. Okay, here's a code of ethics that I created for this class, but I really want to kind of create a code of ethics for my classroom. Honesty, diversity, humility, empathy, and accountability. I think I'm off to a good start. I'm gonna have to take another look at this, but if I can get all these, honesty, diversity, humility, empathy, and accountability into my classroom every day, I think we're gonna have a really good open line of communication. Now, diversity in education. As I said in some of my posts, the first week, there is not a lot of diversity in the school that I teach in. And it can be very strange at times. Fortunately, we do have exchange students that come in every year, and that makes a really big difference. So let me see if I can figure out how to explain this last part. How do you accept students with different backgrounds and beliefs? I'm going to start here. If you can see this, be kind, be curious. It's okay to ask questions about where they're from or what they believe and how they do things. Also, different backgrounds. Help these people. If they need assistance with something, if there's a language barrier, they don't understand how things work, help them. And lastly, acceptance, probably the most important thing. I accept who you are. No matter who you are, I'm here for you. And lastly, on this part here, I hope I'm saying this word right. Ethnocentrism. I was not familiar with this word before, but it's a very strong, important word, especially in the place that I teach. And I'm not saying anything against the community or the people in the school or anything. But not everyone, but a lot of people have this cultural blindness where they're not exposed to other cultures. They don't understand them. So in some cases, some people, if they don't understand something, they immediately disagree with it, or they're fearful of it. And then you can create this cultural bias. So you can't blame people in some respects for cultural blindness. All you can do is try to teach them. And I think the best way to do that is when we do have students come in from different backgrounds and you practice kindness, curiosity, existence, and acceptance, that's going to work. For me, a good way to pull the wool off their eyes to get rid of the cultural blindness is food. We get to make a lot of dishes in my class from different countries and things, and I think it gives students a better understanding. And that's about it. Thanks for listening. Once again, very strange to try to do something on communication when I'm just talking to myself, but I think this quote is a good one to end this training. Good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. Nat Turner. Honestly, I don't know who that is. I will look that up afterwards, but I really like that quote because if you don't have good communication, you are going to have confusion. But if you have good communications and do the best you can to implement these things I just discussed, you will have clarity and I think balance, and it'll just make for a better day and a better education for everyone.